Well, thank you so much, Tracy. Very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to extend profound congratulations to Labour Party and all its members. A successful conference with an overwhelming outcome for the benefit of Britain and wider. Also, my gratitude to Kurdish Progress Organization and especially Ibrahim Douglas and his team for arranging the French meetings this year. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. My special thanks to Tracy Pravin, an MP, who kindly is chairing this this panel discussion. I remember when Tracy became a member of Parliament in October 2016 in a by-election following a sad incident of brutally murdering of Joe Cox MP. Ever since, she followed her footsteps in human rights protection, and I think it's a right moment to send a gratitude and our appreciation to what Joe Cox done for the human rights, and and we say rest in peace and God bless. Tracy was approached by APPG on Kurdistan region, and she saw how the Kurdistan region, and she kindly accepted to visit Kurdistan region and become one of the member for the delegation to Kurdistan region, and she saw by herself the progress in Kurdistan region and how the Kurdistan region, the Peshmerga force and the Iraqi force are confronting the ISIS, and how Kurdistan region become a shelter for actually at the time it was 1.8 million IDPs and refugees from within Iraq and Syrian refugees. We have been lucky to have so many good friends in Labour, and always we have a balanced level of MPs from Labour Party joining the APPG group on Kurdistan region. I have been attending the Labour Party conference since I took the position as a high representative of Kurdistan Regional Government, high representative to the United Kingdom for the last 3 years, apart from last year when we missed the conference, and that was because our referendum for independence was coincided the Labour Party conference, which I later on talk about the referendum a little bit. So for today, there was two topics was announced. One, struggle against ISIS and the future of one of the region's fledgling democracy, and the other one, the Middle East after ISIS. So when I looked at both title, it's both interconnected and both relevant topic to each other, because to talk about ISIS, you have to talk about the Middle East and the complexity of the Middle East and its creation. And you have to talk about the emergence of ISIS, and also you have to talk about the Kurds within Middle East and its struggle over the course of history for freedom and democracy. So to understand the complexity of the Middle East, we have to look back historically, or to look at the history, what are the main reasons of the ongoing complex in Middle East, which I touch base on 4 points on that. Well, due to the wrong strategy and conflict of interest among the major power in the Middle East, the creation of the Middle East, the map drawing of Middle East went wrong, as they have created the countries in the Middle East on the basis of who gets what, not who lives where. This has created unjust among the nations who living in the Middle East. The second point, the major power and the international community continue to support those authorities that they created, the governments that they created, which ultimately resulted in some sort of authoritarianism in the Middle East. This has led to the third point, the lack of democracy, where the people deeply felt that the government are not always exclusive, representative for all. And this has ultimately led to non-recognition of the other nations, right, and other sects or religious right that live in in the Middle East, in particular, excuse me, the Kurd, Jewish, and the other minority or religious in the Middle East. And of course, the ongoing Shia and Sunni conflict remains one of the hidden matters in the Middle East, and the tension has deepened over the course of history without a proper and continuous dialogue between these nations in the Middle East. So, in the Kurdish perspective, leaving these issues without dealing with constructively made us to hear the same story over those who we were hearing a century ago. So we still have the same stories than a century ago when the Middle East have been created, or the countries in the Middle East been created. And no one knows how many more years we have to hear the same story and conflict in the Middle East if we don't establish a proper and continuous dialogue in the Middle East among the nation, sects, and the religions. These conflicts and lack of democracy resulted in rising radicalism and extremism in the Middle East. Al-Qaeda, Ansar al-Islam, Jund al-Islam, Shabab, and lately ISIS are the examples of those extremist and terrorist groups in the Middle East. All these groups had been defeated because they have established for the wrong reason. We struggled a lot against ISIS. We have had defeated them militarily, but the fight for the Middle East is still remain. Unless if we truly establish an honest dialogue, aiming to resolve the core matters and determine the future of the region and how it will shape the global politics. Embracing the values of coexistence, recognition of all nations in the Middle East, and through the notion of Middle East has only Arab identity, in the sense that Middle East identity is not Arab identity, but there is other nation lives in the Middle East, so there must be a recognition of that. As far as Iraq concerns in the Middle East, we as the Kurd, we always explore a good practice to adopt for our relationship with Baghdad. 2003 is a good example when we have decided to remain within Iraq and reconstruct Iraq altogether, but it did not go well. We both sacrificed in Iraq to defeat ISIS, which we did, but did not unite us solidly. Even referendum for independence was an attempt to establish a honest dialogue and better relationship with federal government of Iraq. We marked the first anniversary yesterday, 25th of September, our referendum in Kurdistan region that Tracy has touched upon. 93% voted yes to independent Kurdistan, and 70% was the turnout of the vote. But the referendum, and not the referendum itself, but the ramification, the reaction went wrong after the referendum. When federal government decided to crush, undermine the Kurdistan regional government and attempt to dissolve the Kurdistan region's institution. After a tough period of time, we bared all hurdles and hardship in Kurdistan region. And now we want to get constitutional deal with federal government of Iraq, if that is the fate of the Kurds in Iraq. So we are in the middle of negotiation in forming the new government of Iraq, and everyone realized that Kurdistan region, Kurdish people are playing a big role in forming the government in Iraq. Yesterday, yesterday we heard a lot about Kurdistan and Kurdish solidarity for Kurdish people. Many positive points about the Kurds from our Labour friends. We're here today as the Kurdistan regional government to strengthen this relationship with the Labour Party and other parties as well. The Labour Party's international relations are vast and wide and worldwide, has a good link with many parties within the social parties, and Kurdistan region's political parties are good friends of Labour Party, and they are sister parties with Labour Party. Democracy, human rights, rule of law, equality, social justice, and opportunity for all are the values that we believe. And I'm sure these are the basis for Labour Party's engagement with its global partner. On this principle, Kurdistan region of Iraq aspire more from Labour for support and solidarity, for strong relationship with Kurdistan region of Iraq, excuse me, to bring about more security and stability, protect human rights, and promote democracy. The Middle East is lacking democracy. That is why the uncertainty and interference are always a factor of instability. Therefore, we ask the Labour Party to engage with Kurdistan region of Iraq to support and help to strengthen our democracy, the democratic constitution in Kurdistan region and wider. Westminster Foundation for Democracy could be an entity to pursue this. And we already have some project with Westminster Foundation for Democracy. The more Labour support Kurdistan and its political parties and the government, the more Kurdistan becomes stronger, the more become a factor of democratic development, the more bring about freedom and stability in the area. Thank you so much.